So beforehand, we looked at the fact that our set item purely allows us to set a string value as the key and a string value as the value, which on the surface gives us quite a limiting API. However, we have the global object of JSON, which we can then cleverly use to parse and stringify our data structures. So what we can do, and if we want to look at our true value, is use JSON stringify and JSON parse cleverly when we are setting and getting our data. This will also allow us to use more complex data structures and not just the built-in JavaScript primitive types such as strings, numbers, and booleans. We can then start adopting objects and arrays. So how do we do this? What I want to do is just blow this away quickly. And what we're going to do is create some functions. So we're going to say const set value equals a new function. And we're also going to create a get value function. So this is just purely going to be a nice wrapper that's going to wrap our local storage calls because we don't want to write the same thing out with JSON stringify and JSON parse every single time. So our set value, we're going to keep the exact same. We're going to say the key and the value. And when we get the value, we're just going to simply ask for a key. So as we know, our set value simply uses localStorage.setItem. We can then pass in the key and the value. And then our get value can simply call localStorage.getItem, pass in that key. But of course, we need to go ahead and return that item because otherwise, when we call our get value, it's not going to be returned to us. So if we go ahead and call set value, we can pass in cookies and we're going to pass in the value. Now this time I'm going to pass in an actual Boolean because we want to store that true instead of a string type because we shouldn't really be relying on dealing with strings. Now because this is going to remember a cookie banner choice, we're going to say const choice is then going to be get value and we just simply want to ask for that cookie's value. So at the moment, if we were to go ahead and save out our choice, we would then see our string value of true because that is what has been set. I should also add at this point that if we were to keep setting the same key, it will obviously get overwritten much like JavaScript objects would. So if we say local storage set item cookies and then underneath set item cookies again, it will set both values, but of course the second one will take precedence and override it. So on the way into local storage is where we essentially want to convert this value over to a string. Now this is being done automatically for us. However, the difference comes when we do something like this and want to pass an object in. You can see that we have this object, and if I jump into my application, we are in fact storing this object. Now what local storage is doing under the scenes is calling object.toString. That then gives us this object, which if you imagine this is a more complex data structure with lots of information inside, all of that has just been lost as soon as we try and set it as a string. If we set this to an array, we don't actually see anything inside of here. So you can see that there are some common gotchas. If we straight off the mark, we were trying to set some more custom data structures. So what we need to in fact do is start using JSON.stringify. So let's go ahead and say JSON.stringify, and we want to stringify that value as we are setting it in the item. So this won't actually look much different when we stringify our true value. However, if we change this across to an object, now you don't need to copy this along, I'm just going to add my name in here. You can see that we, instead of this object, we have a string. Now, because Google Chrome is a nice developer tools, it gives us a nice experience. So you can see here that it knows that I've in fact set an object and it's parsing it out for me to view. So this isn't actually an object. This is definitely a string. Google Chrome is just helping us out here and letting us examine our data structures in a bit more detail as we are creating our applications. So keep that in mind. We can, of course, add some different properties such as an age, and you can see that these are being parsed as their different types. So here we have a string and here we have a number. But at the moment, we're just dealing with a straight up Boolean value. So when we hit save, you can see that we have this true in the console. Now at the moment, when we look at our console log, you can see that we have true. However, this is a string value of true because when we get this item, we are not parsing it back. So we need to say JSON.parse essentially on the way out of the local storage. So we pass in the key, we go and get that particular item, and then we parse the value that we get back. So we can see that this black true has now become blue. So we're now dealing with proper data structures in JavaScript. Now, again, if we go ahead and say name and start to create some more complex data structures, we'll then see these in the console being printed out as an actual object. If we were to, for example, get rid of our JSON parse command, we then get a string object. Now, I might add that you can't save things like functions because we are using JSON stringify and JSON parse. So this is a nice easy way that we can save our data structures, our pure JavaScript objects and arrays and things like this, Booleans as well, to our local storage. For us, we're just going to keep it simple and use a straight up Boolean value. I think you'll agree that by calling set value and get value like this, it's a nice utility wrapper that we don't have to keep calling local storage set item, pass in the key, remember to stringify things. So this saves us a lot of typing and a lot of headaches along the way. So that's it for this lesson. In the next one, we're going to look at how to clear and remove particular items from our local storage and continue building out our example. And then we're going to be building a UI to then tie some events into our code that we have so far.